Let me ask you a question. When you go out there and you meet an enemy fighter aeroplane and you're going to get engaged in a dogfight, who's going to win? If you say you're not too sure, then you cannot be a fighter pilot.
He has to have that confidence that no matter what happens, he can bring the aircraft back. You must also have a certain degree of courage. This is not a nice, comfortable aeroplane with an air condition. You can watch a movie. This is a fighter. You have to fly it.
Situational awareness, speed, and confidence has to be a must. Seconds make a difference as to whether you stay alive or you don't.
Courage, determination, and unwavering resolve are prerequisites for an Air Force pilot. But for our pioneer Air Force pilots, it took more than grits and guts. When Britain unexpectedly announced its withdrawal from Singapore in 1968, there was an urgent need to create our own Air Force.
But we thought we had more time. The whole pace of building up the armed forces escalated. So some of us were selected. We went to the UK for training.
That was my second year of A-levels. They knocked on the door and said, report for duty. We came in on a Saturday and they report for duty on a Monday. The only vehicle I could drive was a bicycle. I didn't even drive a car. I looked at my dad, he looked at me and said, that's it, go. That 1 second go, that changed my life.
Training in England was in 1968 is particularly unnerving. The whole of the environment is different. You only had 150 hours to get your wings. You had to learn very quickly.
And you got to work very hard at it. When you start flying, you have to do it often enough for it to become second nature.
It's like dancing, you know. When you first learn how to dance, you have to think of the steps. After a while, it just happens naturally. And that's when you and the aircraft become one.
You fly it like you're part of your soul. And once you reach that point, then you're considered a very operational pilot. I will never forget those 2.5 years. By the time we came back, we were totally different people. Schooled in the art of being a gentleman, and yet schooled in the art of being a warrior. It was awesome.
By 1970-71, the bulk of the pilots came back, and we formed the core, the pioneers of the Air Force. And in that sense, 140 Squadron, the Hunter Squadron, was the anchor. We were the first. And out of 140 Squadron came the future leaders of the Air Force. We either have to make it or we lose it, you know.
The pilots went through intense rigor and training, but their biggest challenge was that they had no predecessors.
Now, there was nobody to teach us, really. We had an idea of how we think it ought to be because the government sent us on many courses. But these people had to come back, distill these lessons, and then come up with our own idea of how we think we will have to operate. The real challenge was starting from square one. What you learn in school, what you learn in a command and staff college, is not the same as having to do it for real.
Pioneering work is very difficult. So we had to make do as we could at that time. Nobody had done it before, and you have to break new ground. You have to imagine how to do it. You have to trailblaze.
Forging a way through the unknown meant that the pioneer Air Force pilots were constantly out of their depth. But what they all had in common was an adventurous spirit.
You need to have a never say die attitude. You want to be able to push the limits, see what the aircraft can do, see what the mission can generate out of you as a warrior, how it can push you, challenge you to doing more than you were even able to do. I think this is the part of the excitement of flying.
We were not afraid of going beyond the limits. When you start wandering in uncharted waters, you have to be very careful. But you cannot stop yourself and say, no, it is too difficult, I'm too afraid. You will never ever break new ground.
It is not a job without risks. Flying is exciting for the pilots, but the hearts of their loved ones are constantly kept on the edge.
For my wife, there was an incident once in Tengah, and my boss turned up in uniform in a car, and she thought that he was bringing bad news about me not having made it back. And she immediately cried. But all he wanted to do was come up to see whether I was available to play a game of squash with him. I think we all move on to expect this to be part and parcel of life.
This predicament was especially real to the Hunterians in their times. As a young Air Force, they were set on pushing the limits, and safety wasn't the highest on their priority.
5 to 6 years for any Air Force to take over local command is very short. And in the process, I think a number of things could have been missed, like how to make sure that you fly responsibly, safely. We lost some aeroplanes and pilots, but we also learned from that. And we started to realize where our weaknesses were in operational management. And we tightened up very quickly and we became much safer after that.
It is always risky flying aeroplanes. Your life depends on the engine going round and round and round, you know. But I think the risk is ameliorated by having good engineers, good technicians, good pilots, and so on and so forth.
In anything when you're involved in an aircraft, when you service an aircraft, the most important thing is lives, people's lives. When you fit an engine or any component you fit in an aircraft, the aircraft flies. There's someone flying it, and his life is important. So we are always very mindful of that. What if it crashes? Okay, for a pilot, he can eject. And the aircraft drop on a house, so lives are there. That is what is always in our minds.
I think the Air Force has come a long way. The very important part of that is to be able to understand the need to preserve potential, to have good safety, not to be able to push the limits too hard in peacetime, but be able to do that in preparation when the wartime comes.
As the Air Force matured, so did the pilots. For many, the mission of the Vietnamese refugee crisis was a defining point.
The fall of Vietnam in 1975 resulted in the saga of the boat people. Tens of thousands of Vietnamese were forced into fishing boats to get out of Vietnam. So 140 Squadron was what was called a fighter recce squadron. We had cameras. Every morning, at the break of dawn, we had to fly the fighter recce squadron, take pictures of these boats coming in so that our people, the Navy, the Army, and the government would be prepared for them. Can you imagine if Singapore was flooded with refugees? We were hardly 2.5 million people, and suddenly you have tens of thousands coming in. How can we do that?
That is when we started to realize that we were really in a very serious role to defend the country. We started to understand the link between just being a pilot to being a pilot and a warrior that defends the nation. You're not just there for yourself. You need to understand what you're doing out there. What's the purpose? What is your mission? You're there for something bigger, grander, more noble. Then it clicked. And then we were able to, as a bunch of pioneer fighter pilots, bring this psyche to the rest of the pilots joining us after that.
Working in sync is of utmost importance in the Air Force, and the aerobatics team is a testament to that.
In the early days, when Dr. Goh decided that we should have an aerobatic team, we've never done it before. We only learned how to fly the aeroplane, do certain exercises. We never flew in formation. Nobody taught us how to do it. There was always a little bit of risk because you're flying the aircraft very fast and very low. 500 feet above the ground. You make a mistake, it's over.
Aerobatic displays are not all fun and games. There is a lot of danger involved. Pilots are undergoing a great deal of stress in their maneuvers.
This is not foreign to the pioneer pilots who were part of the team flying the Hunters on its first public appearance in 1973.
So there were 4 of us, okay? And we flew in different positions. We trained 3 times a day, and that was the best time of my life as a pilot. It was the most challenging flying. You were in position, you were part of the team, like a clock. All the gears worked perfectly, and we gave this performance.
It was one of the best flying I ever did in the Air Force. The Black Knights is not simply an air show. We are the ambassadors of the Air Force.
The pilots that were flying today were doing most of the maneuvers that they do in combat. Splitting up, keeping an eye on your leader, cutting the corner, rejoining each other. There's a lot of hard work that goes on that you don't see.
In the Air Force, we always have each other's back. We have to work as a team to put an aircraft and a mission up in the air. So you have to work with fellow pilots, you have to work with the ground technicians, the engineers in the hangar, you got to work with air traffic controllers, fighter controllers to put together a mission. So you got to trust everybody. It's absolute teamwork, and that is one of the most powerful aspects of an Air Force.
So I started off on the Hunters as an Air Force technician. Of course, in the early years, we have to rely solely on the SIFU, the senior technicians guiding us along. Something that I would treasure is the bond among the crew, both the air crew, the ground crew. And the bond is so strong that it goes beyond just the work area, even outside of the work.
A shared affinity remains among the Hunterian team, who were the nucleus from which squadrons and aircraft emerged over the years.
I was the one that commanded the last flight for the Hunters. That was in 1992. Flying the aircraft for the last time was, of course, very emotional. Having flown so many hours on the aircraft, we had to put up a show to the rest of the Air Force to show that this was his final flight. We made sure that we provided a good display of what the aircraft could do on the last day. We knew that he had to go, and we were proud that at the end of it, we were able to retire with dignity.
Well, the Hunter, as a fighter aircraft, trained a pool of people. It laid the foundation for the pilots, the engineers, the technicians, to become pilots, technicians, engineers of future, more sophisticated aircraft.
The pioneering spirit of the Hunterian team did not stop at their generation. They left an enduring legacy.
I think a very important part of any military operation, Air Force operation, is to always remain relevant. So although we start up as pioneers, we are always introducing this passion to want to do better and do things better. And we work with all these guys to upgrade the aircraft. The Hunter itself went through an upgrade. F-5s went through an upgrade. Skyhawks went through an upgrade. And once you get into this mood of creativity, then it just is self-sustaining, into the years ahead.
As a pioneer, I know that we laid the foundation and we worked together to set it up. Every one of us had a part to play. We worked at a time with very old machines, but now the equipment that they're using is very much sophisticated, very electronic, very advanced. We have gone from the old to the new, and I'm glad to see it.
In the 1960s, we didn't even have an Air Force. We took the Air Force from zero. We surpassed every Air Force in this region. You fast forward again, another 20 years, and this is where we are today.
Together, the Hunterian team brought our fledgling Air Force onto the global stage. But for the pioneers, the Hunter will always be their first love.
I've flown a lot of aeroplanes in 34 years, but the Hunter is, to me, it's like a violin. You do not play an electric guitar the same way as you play a violin. You need to be gentle and you need to be one with the violin. It's the sort of aircraft that you can play a lovely tune with, and you can dance with this aeroplane. If you dance well with it, all right, you can perform anything.
The humble beginnings of Singapore's Air Force embodies the spirit of this tiny nation with big ambitions.
I have a lot to share in terms of what we do, what we have seen the Air Force develop over the years, and how we are part of it. It is really exciting because at that point in time, we just take it as trying to do a good job. But really at the end of the day, it is built up into a more wholesome defense posture that the SAF is building up.
The fact that we are in a vintage contingent reminds us that we are from the pioneer group. But at that time when we were doing it, we didn't see ourselves as pioneers because we were just busy doing our day-to-day stuff and growing as the military at that time.
It has been a tremendous honor to be part of this growth. We were 21 fighter pilots It's so nice to look back to see how far we have come. When I go back and meet up with some of these guys, I can still see the spirit in the eye, the desire to want to fly and do well for the Air Force and for the country. We are very happy that we had laid the seeds for this many, many years ago. Very satisfying, gratifying.
This is like a brotherhood, okay, because we flew together. We flew together in the same cockpit, we flew in the same piece of sky. That's something very special. It's like a family. Yeah.